Hello and welcome to another episode of Season 2 in Real Life with Adrena. I am so excited about today's episode because we are actually talking with my website designer, Bekah, and she's going to introduce herself and we're going to go into the topic of let's take a break. So it's going to be a little bit different from our other episodes. We're going to talk about a sabbatical, what it means, the importance of taking a break, and what she is preparing for this year. So Bekah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, so like Adrena said, my name is Bekah and I have Rebecca Reed Creative. And I started my business back in 4 years ago, really because I wanted freedom in my business, and that will kind of play into this whole conversation, because I think a lot of us go in with that mentality and then all of a sudden we're not actually doing that. So that was why I went in, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started off with social media, and then as I designed my own website, realized I really loved designing websites. But from the beginning, my heart was really just to encourage other, primarily female entrepreneurs, in whatever way I could. And I just loved being their cheerleader and helping them with their business. And so that's always been kind of my mission and my goal. And that's just looked different throughout the years. But for the past 3 years or so, it's been designing websites and just really trying to dig into the heart behind the person and how we can convey that in not just a cohesive way on the website, but like making a website that's gonna convert and, have their audience actually click the buy button or whatever it is. So I do that through Squarespace courses. I have an SEO course and then just a how-to DIY Squarespace course, as well as one-on-one. I work with Show It and Squarespace website designs. So yeah.
And we'll go ahead and link everything that Bekah has down below, her SEO course and her website as well. So if you've ever visited my website, then you know that she is an excellent designer. And I will say, I am so grateful for Bekah because every time I have even just the smallest question, I know that I can always just ask her and she just comes through with a response right away. So I am so grateful that she is in my life and I'm so grateful to have this conversation with her today. So the first thing that I want to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background is Bekah actually took a month off last year in the month of December, and it was basically a full month, and she communicated everything that she needed to communicate to her clients about taking a month off. For her, it was a sabbatical, and so I wanted Bekah to come on here and talk a little bit about what a sabbatical is and why it was important for her at that time last year. And so yeah, I just want to start off with asking for you, Bekah, what does a sabbatical mean?
So it was just an extended time away to replenish. That literally is the definition. And sabbatical is actually it comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat, and that just means to cease doing. And so it's just a period of resting. And for me, at that point, I was 2.5 years into my business, and I think a lot of us get the message of the hustle culture. And I'm not trying to say that there's never a season for that, because I do think that when you're starting out, there's a lot you have to do to really get your business going. And that's just the reality. But if you never take a break, you're going to get burnt out and you're not going to make it to that 3-year mark. And that's kind of where I was. And so I knew, probably starting, I would say at 2 years of my business, I was like, I need to take not just a week vacation, but like an extended time away from my business to really replenish and start to really think about what are my goals, what are my visions for my business. Do I want to continue in the website design route? Do I want to create courses? For me, that's what my month-long sabbatical was, as well as I planned it over December. I was home with family, and so I just wanted to be able to rest and enjoy my family. I felt like I hadn't given that to them in a long time. I had always been halfway there, and then halfway also running a business. And so I want to just cut off everything, like Instagram, everything. So that for me was why, and also kind of what sabbatical was for me.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think when I, first started my business, I was working a full-time 9-to-5 job in addition to everything else that I was doing at Accounting by Adrena. And it was definitely all consuming. And it's one of those things where, your family or your close friends are like giving you a lot of grace for, in the beginning, because they know that like it is all consuming and you do have to stay dedicated to it. But one of the things that I think we all kind of learn after that period of hustle where you're just working 24/7 nonstop is that there is definitely the need for rest. And so I know that a lot of people practice having a Sabbath, like during the week, one day a week. And so that is one of the things that I do try to incorporate into my life, is having just a day of rest and just stopping. But it is so hard as entrepreneurs because we are just always feeling the need to always be there and to show up, and to be there for our clients, especially if they have a need at any time of day. So putting those boundaries on when we're going to be communicating to clients and when we're not is definitely hard in the beginning. And so I know that a lot of people who are watching this video are probably in the thick of it as far as starting their own businesses. And so what are some of the ways that they can prepare to have an extended time off, whether it be a week, 2 weeks, or even a month?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's obviously so many different ways that you can prepare for it. But what it looked like for me, and like I said, it took a couple years to build this. I was not able to take a sabbatical right off the bat.
Yeah.
For me, when I jumped into my business, my pricing was pretty low, which is fine. You raise your prices as you go. And so figuring out what is enough for me and my family was a huge step in being able to then take an extended period away. So when I was working in corporate America, I made about $30,000. My first year of business, I'm open about this, I made about 14,000. So I was not about to go take a leave. My husband, I'm sure, would have supported me, but it would have been hard for our family financially. So once I said, well, when I make that 30,000 mark, that's when I'm going to allow myself this break. And I think if without that, and that mentality didn't come naturally to me. I should say that too. Like I felt, especially in the beginning of my entrepreneur journey, I felt like 10K months and six figures were like, I was just inundated with that message, podcast episodes, and just so much of like six figures, and course launches that say how to this will get you 10K months, and like that is I feel like the marketing tactic that a lot of people are using, and I'm not trying to knock it or bash it. But if your family doesn't need six figures, then that is a good thing to realize, and that's a healthy thing to realize. And that's what I came to that realization, is I don't need to get there. And I strived for a long time to get there. And when I finally came to this realization that I didn't need that, that's when I was able to implement a break. So that would be the first thing I'd say, is like, if you're in the way beginning of your business, just figure out what you need to survive. And then I guess reward yourself when you get there, For me, another step to just preparing for sabbatical for me was kind of a rest, also to reconnect to the Lord. And so prayer pre-sabbatical was also important for me, because I'm an Enneagram 3. I get really wrapped up in the hustle culture and finding my worth in how much I make, or how many people I help, or how many people are on my email list.
Yeah.
I knew that was something I wanted to, that one of my goals of sabbatical was to like overcome that. Right. And I didn't know if I'd be able to in 30 days, but I wanted to get closer to that. So a lot of that prayer prior was just like, okay, Lord, like help me now to be effective and efficient and not just scrolling Instagram. And then in the month of December, help me to, for me, Instagram is just a really, I'm addicted. Let's just say it for what it is. And so I was like, help me not desire it. Right. And so it was just like a lot of prayer throughout this. That was a huge way I prepared. And then more practically, like batch working was huge. So, and I am 35 weeks pregnant. And so I'm going to be going on maternity leave in 5 weeks or whatever. And it's the same thing. I'm doing a lot of batch working. I talk a lot about like batch working your days, and like having like a marketing Monday, finance Friday, that kind of thing. But this is more like so if you're a podcast host, batching podcasts for a while, you're going to be gone. My main marketing tool, back when I was doing sabbatical, so in 2020, I would say Instagram was a way I was getting a lot of clients. And so for me at that point, I was batching Instagram content. And that looked like, honestly, just going back to Instagram posts I posted 2 years ago and just repurposing the photo and the caption. Now Reels is more of a thing. And so it's not, I don't know how effective that would be, but figuring out what your marketing thing is so that it can continue to run even while you're gone. So like I said, in 2020, it was Instagram. Now in 2021, I got into a place in my business where SEO and natural organic traffic is huge. So I have been batching my YouTube videos and my blog posts. And so I create a YouTube video and then transcribe it into a blog post. And then I push it out to Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Like once you create the bulk of the like content, it's just like pushing it out to the different places. So I create the video and then I put it in my Trello board, and my assistant has a system that she'll go through each week where she'll take that video, she'll transcribe it, she'll put it out on my social channels. So I won't need to be on social media. Maternity leave is going to be 3 months versus 1 month. And so when I was able to just step away from my business for 1 month, it was okay to just piece out of Instagram. I probably won't for 3 months because that's a long time. And I do enjoy being on it, but yeah, batching is huge. And just being able to stay at least somewhat consistent. You don't need to show up as you have been. You're not live launching a course, of course, but like you just showing up in some way is another really practical way to prepare. And then outsourcing. And I have one assistant. She's just, just finding someone that you can pay $20-$25 an hour kind of wage as when you're starting out is a great price. And people who are brand new will be willing to charge that. And so having an assistant has been really helpful, and she will be doing all that work for me while I'm gone. So those are just kind of some practical ways that I prepare.
Nice. I like how you mentioned that you're preparing mentally beforehand in the months leading up to it, because I think it is a lot of kind of like the things that we need to change in our lives are like getting prepared mentally first. And so I'm glad that you had mentioned that. I feel like that would be something that I would need to mentally prepare for as well before actually like, going into the sabbatical for a month off. You mentioned about like having a goal during your sabbatical. And so I'm curious what you did during your sabbatical. So in the months leading up to it, you were preparing, you were batch working, you were giving things to your assistant to help you with that. And then when it actually happened, like in theory, like you can think this is all of the good things that I need to be doing is spending time with family and not being on Instagram. So in practice, what did that look like?
Yeah, it was a little bit different than what I thought, which was really cool because like I said, I believe the Lord kind of transitioned it how it was supposed to go. And so, yeah, my goal for sabbatical, like kind of what I said, was to like rejuvenate and just like understand that my worth is not found in my work. Like that was more or less my mission statement for the month. And there's this, I forget her name, I think Olivia Herrick Design, I think is maybe her Instagram handle. But she does this thing in December called the Holly Jolly Design Challenge. And it just like crossed my Instagram profile in November, at the end of November. And I was like, oh, I'll sign up for it, and didn't think much of it. And that ended up being a really pivotal aspect of my month, which is just so cool how that kind of played out. And what it allowed me to do is I don't do logos. Not really. I used to, and I found myself really comparing. I can design a website and not really compare, but with logos, it was not easy for me to not compare. So I kind of just left that behind, and I through her Holly Jolly Design Challenge, every day she would give like a little prompt, whether it was like design a stocking, or whatever. And I wasn't on social media, so I couldn't look up what other people were doing, which usually is a go-to Bekah thing. Like, I go to Pinterest and I get inspiration.
Uh-huh.
And it's not that I'm copying, but I'm getting inspiration and then I'm comparing. And
Mm,
so I wasn't able to do that because I wasn't on Instagram. So I literally had to just use my brain. And that creativity
yeah,
was something that I felt was so pivotal and like
yeah.
reestablishing that like Bekah, you do have a gift and you do have a talent, because for so long all I had done was compare, and I just felt like, I'm just not that good at designing that kind of in that kind of way. I have other talents and that's not one of them. And so that ended up being a really beautiful aspect of sabbatical, for me. And yeah, that's kind of one thing I took away. And then I mean, just like being able to focus on family, read a lot of books that were just fun books, and be off Instagram. I really struggle with boundaries on Instagram, and it's kind of like an all or nothing for me. So like you talked about like taking a Sabbath once a week, and I try to do that. And if I at all allow Instagram to be a part of it, even if it's like I'm not working, like it turns into this scroll thing and it's not effective for me personally. So
Mhm.
I have to physically have my husband hide my phone. It's just a boundary that I just don't have. So I don't know, like that was really cool just being able to like sign off and
Okay.
yeah, kind of do my own thing. So that's kind of how it turned out to be for the month of December. And it was a really beautiful time.
That's incredible. That's awesome. I love how that course kind of like allowed you to rekindle that relationship that you had to creativity. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of us have creativity within us, and it's just finding that kind of inspiration to tap into that creativity and create. One of the books that I'm reading right now is actually called The Artist's Way. Have you heard of that book before?
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
It's really interesting. I'm still kind of, I think I'm in the third chapter, but I'm going through it a lot slower, and this is completely a sidetrack and not in our notes at all. But it is definitely like there's like some sort of spark that's happening in the book where I'm feeling like, okay, I got to go create some more things. And what does that mean for me? Does that mean that I need to set time aside to like draw or do oil painting or work on movie scripts or something like that? So I'm still trying to decide what that means for me as far as creativity is concerned. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there because it is a really good book. And I think it's been around for quite some time. So a lot of you may have already heard of it. You may have already read it. It's sort of like a course. So it does walk you through like week by week what you should be doing, and gives you like assignments and things like that. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, sidetracking is good, I think. So, another book that I really liked is called Called to Create. And I think I read that during my sabbatical.
Nice.
And he talks a lot about just kind of the same thing that, like, I don't know, I think a lot of times there's a lot of praise for like doctors and lawyers, and there should be, right? Like, we need these people, they're great.
Mhm.
But sometimes I feel like I diminish my calling as a creative.
Mhm.
But the first thing, and if you're not religious, I'm sorry, but the first thing that the Lord did was create. Like that was the first thing before he ever did any medical. So um just seeing that like play out in the book, and then I mean even how this kind of plays into like the work day. Like I think as a lot of creative entrepreneurs, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are in that field.
Mhm.
um we like a way to kind of something I've kind of tried to like take with me from sabbatical
Mhm.
is that you don't have to work an 8-hour day to be not even like effective, but like I felt like I felt like I needed to work an 8-hour day because my husband was working an 8-hour day.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that's what I needed to do. And even if I didn't have the work. And so I would like try to drag work out or whatever it was. And that 8-hour day concept comes from the industrial revolution, when they were having factory workers who were doing mindless tasks, right?
Mhm.
A creative entrepreneur is actually not like that's not really effective for them.
Mhm.
And so, and I don't necessarily know how this works with your business, Adrena, with accounting, but I know for me, like if when I'm giving my all to a creative project, if I can last more than 4 hours, that's shocking because it is just absolutely draining
Mhm.
to design a website or whatever it is. And so giving myself the okay, and also coming to the realization that, oh, it's actually not effective to work 8 hours for me, and for many creative entrepreneurs. And it's actually proven that sabbatical and taking an extended rest makes you more productive. Like there's a reason they've implemented this into the university system.
Yeah.
So it's not just a religious thing. Like it's in, like when they work, 10 years, 15 years, they get a sabbatical from being a professor. And so there's definitely a reason that we should rest, and whether that's taking time off Saturday and Sunday, or only working 4-hour days, or taking a 3-month break, like figuring out what is best for you. But it is really important to do.
Yes. So I would say like or a couple of the ways that I'm like kind of like integrating all of this into my life is taking my mornings like really slow, and just starting with like journaling, starting with reading, and then getting up and getting ready for the day. And so that's kind of like my way of like easing into the day. And then one of the things that we're working on here at Accounting by Adrena is only working Monday through Thursday and taking that Friday off, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And so we're kind of slowly moving to that model of like, we don't have to be working all the time, bookkeeping is not an emergency. And it's like one of those things where you have to make sure that you have everything covered as far as like accounting and bookkeeping is concerned. But once it's covered, then you're on a kind of like a routine. So it's not necessarily like entirely draining unless you have like a huge report that's due that day or whatever the case may be, like a big meeting or something like that. But I think being able to move to like a 4-day work week rather than a 5-day work week is not only just like a blessing, but it's just, I think that helps us overall, because then at that point where I'm like taking every Friday off, I'm ready to get back into work on Mondays, so it's like, it gives your brain that break that you need to do anything else but work, whether that is rest or whether that is, going out and, taking a trip or seeing family or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And I think some people are more structured. Like, I think you're a more structured person. And so for you, you need kind of a plan of like, okay, I'm going to have 4 days of work and then a day off. Whereas for me, and the way my brain works, and this is something I felt guilty about for a long time, is like, I might be like gung ho on Monday, and Tuesday, I just need to rest. And then the next week, it might be Monday is like, I need to not work Monday. And so Monday is my day off. And then I work 4 days the rest of the week. And so it transitions. And for me, that works because one, I don't have like meetings. Like I don't really meet with clients. So I'm able to have that. And then really the only deadlines I have are like when I'm submitting drafts of websites, which are weeks apart. So it doesn't matter what day I work on it. So if you're in a creative business like that, give yourself that freedom to work at night. If my assistant works, I don't know how she does it, but she like thrives from like 6 to midnight. And that's when she works. And it's like, okay, if that's when you do your best work, like that's when you do your best work. That's the benefit of having your own business. And I think giving yourself that freedom is something that we should definitely do. And that's why a lot of us went into entrepreneurship. We wanted to wear jammies all day or whatever, so.
Yeah, no, my assistant is learning about herself as well, and feeling like she does her best creative work like at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, hey, more power to you. I am like ready for bed at that time.
Yeah. I'm on the Pacific Coast and she's on the East Coast, and I'll like text her at 8 and be like, I'm sorry. And she's like, oh, I'm working. And I'm like, why? I don't understand. Whereas I produce better work in the morning. And so for me to have kind of a morning routine established and get into it by like 9:30 and then be done by 2 is usually works well for me.
That's good. So my last question for you today is, what are some ways that people who are not entrepreneurs, how can they make that work in, taking a month off or taking, an extended time off, or even incorporating a sabbatical into their work week?
So if you have an employer, right, that you're working for, I would just say, if this is something that you think would be beneficial for you and something you want to do, collect the research and bring it to your employer and see what they have to say, because I think you might be surprised. They're not probably going to offer you a month off, But if you say, hey, I really think I can come back super rejuvenated and ready with new creative ideas
Mhm.
for our company,
Mhm.
if I get this, they might be willing to do it. And I also should say, like, don't expect it to be a paid month off.
Yeah.
And so for me, like when I went on my month-long sabbatical, I didn't get paid during December, right? And as entrepreneurs, like that's kind of what we have to work out our own that finances and stuff like that. And so I would just say like potentially be willing to make that agreement that but if you're able to do it, and I know it's not a blessing that everyone is afforded, but for me I was like I'm willing to cut back on a lot of expenses so that I can get a month off. And so that's kind of how we made it work.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's what I would say is just like get the research and then also know yourself and present it to your employer and see. I mean, the worst they can say is no. So but if they are not, if a whole month is like not going to be okay with them, um I'm sure you get a week off. And so just being really intentional, figuring out how can you really maximize that week. And so it really depends on how you thrive. Like if you're someone that thrives with rest and um that kind of thing, how can you cultivate that? Is that through a beach vacation to Mexico where it's all inclusive and you don't have to think about one thing?
Mhm.
I thrive by like lots of activities. And so I knew going into sabbatical that if I had no plan, I'd probably just like go to Instagram. So I actually had like a list of things of what I wanted to do, like being more creative, figuring out really intentional and fun gifts for my family members. I did have like I had literally rest and take naps on my list because if I didn't, like I would feel guilty about it. So I had this list of like 15 things of I could do every day,
Nice.
because that's just how my brain works. And so if that's how you are, then create that, and so that you can really maximize that week, however it is.
Mhm.
And if you can't get a whole week, then just start looking at, well, what can you do for like a Sabbath where you 1 day a week are being super intentional about signing off of social media. And if you don't like cooking, which I hate cooking, then meal prep or have something done, or pizzas or whatever is like super easy for you. I
Mhm.
hate cooking, but I love baking. Baking fills me up, and so that's something I would potentially do on my Saturday Sabbath.
Mhm.
And so just like creating that list would really help, so that you can maximize that day.
Yeah. I love that. One of the jobs that I had left a few like more than a few years ago, it's probably 10 years ago now. But I built in like 2 to 3 weeks of like nothing. And that first week I was like, I want to go to the beach. And I went to the beach and I like just kept walking. I walked for like 3 miles at the beach that day because it was like on my list. It was one of those things that I wanted to do because I had been in a season of really, really, really busy. And I hated it. Like I hated being so busy like that. And I just wanted to like unwind. And it was so nice to have like that week off of like not doing anything and just like going to the beach to go walk or read a book under the tree or like at the park and have lunch at the park or whatever, just keeping it like low key, very slow. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do as a staycation too if you don't have the means to like go somewhere to travel or whatever the case may be for you. So
Yeah, definitely.
well, thank you so much for your time, Becca. I really appreciate that. And go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your Squarespace SEO course. And then we'll leave all of the links below in the description box so you guys can check her out and find Becca on Instagram.
Yeah, so my courses are primarily for people who are new entrepreneurs who can't drop the big bucks on a website designer. There are a lot of different routes that you can go. I do think having an online presence is very important, especially when you're starting to think about something like taking an extended rest like this. Part of the reason I can do that is because I have a website that's working behind the scenes
Mhm.
and still collecting people on my email list and still growing my business.
Mhm.
And social media doesn't really do that. So having a website I do think is important. There's a lot of different routes you can find. Obviously, a website designer, you can find a template, but I decided to go the route of creating a course because I really wanted to equip the individual to, first of all, make a custom website if that's what they felt they needed, but also to be able to edit that however they wanted, because businesses, especially when you're a new entrepreneur, businesses change. And like I was a social media manager, and then I turned into a website designer. So as your business changes, having your website change is what will end up happening. So I have a Squarespace, like DIY. It's called Squarespace with Confidence. And that just teaches you like literally how to create a website, start to finish, going module by module. And then I have an SEO course. So if you have a Squarespace website and it's just not fully doing the work for you, the SEO course is a really great way to just teach you again all of the nitty gritty of what I did on Adrina's site as a client, what I did for her, and then how you can continue to increase and improve your SEO on your website. And so, yeah, those are the two options of courses that I have. And yeah, thanks for letting me share about them.
Yeah. I so appreciate your time today, Bekah, and go make sure to check out Bekah's YouTube channel, because she also provides a lot of great information there. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of In Real Life with Adrina.